In this question, a schedule with two transactions T1 and T2 is given. In this schedule, there are two missing terms P and Q. The question is the possible values of P and Q for which the given schedule is allowed under Thomas Wright rule but not under basic timestamp ordering protocol. And it is also given that timestamp of T2 is greater than timestamp of it is also given that timestamp of T2 is greater than timestamp of T1. That means transaction T1 has arrived earlier than transaction T2. So this is a question. In basic timestamp ordering protocols, if a transaction T issues read operation issues read operation on X, then it will be compared with the write timestamp of X. If T of S timestamp timestamp of T is less than write timestamp of X, then T1, then transaction T is rolled back. Why? Because this sentence means if timestamp of T is less than write timestamp of X. Write timestamp of X means that the timestamp of the transaction which has updated, which has written the value X most recently. That means if, here this is nothing but transaction which has come earlier is trying to read the value which is already updated by the transaction which has came after its arrival. That means this transaction T is trying to read the wrong value. So here transaction T is rolled back. And the second case is, if this is not the case, then read operation is executed successfully. If transaction T issues write operation on X, then it will be compared with read timestamp and write timestamp of the data item X. If timestamp of T is less than read timestamp of X, then T is rolled back. That means here it is trying to write the value on a data item, write data item which was already read by the transaction which has come after its arrival. That means in this case also transaction T is rolled back. Why? Because it should not write once the latest transaction has written the value which it is trying to write. So this transaction T is rolled back, and timestamp of T is compared with write timestamp. If timestamp of T is less than write timestamp of X, then also T1 is rolled back in case of basic timestamp ordering protocols, but it is not rolled back in case of Thomas rule. It transaction is not rolled back, and this schedule is allowed under Thomas Wright rule. Thomas Wright rule. Just this write operation is ignored, but transaction is not rolled back in case of Thomas Wright rule. Whereas in basic timestamp ordering protocols, this transaction which is trying to write the value which was already on a data item which was already written by the latest transaction will be rolled back in case of basic timestamp ordering protocols, but it is not rolled back, it is just ignored in case of Thomas Wright rule. So these are the conditions with respect to basic timestamp ordering and Thomas Wright rule. So here we have to find the values of P and Q such that this schedule is allowed under Thomas Wright rule but not allowed under basic timestamp ordering protocol. So if you see option A, option A is given as write B and write C. That means P value is write B and Q value is write C. Let us check with this option. If here if it is write B and write C, let us check if this schedule is allowed under basic timestamp ordering protocol or not. If it is here write B, here it is given that transaction T1 has arrived earlier. So whenever this write operation is called, it will check for these conditions. Here write operation, here transaction T2, timestamp of T2 is greater than T1. So here T1 has read the data item B earlier. So here timestamp of T, that means timestamp of transaction T2 is greater than write timestamp of B. So there will not be any problem with this one. Now let us check with this one. This is write operation on data item C. Whenever this write operation on C is called, it will check for this condition, and the timestamp of here timestamp of transaction. Here transaction means this first transaction. Why? Because it has called write operation on data item C. So timestamp of T is here. What is read timestamp of C? Read timestamp of C is nothing but timestamp of T1 only. Why? Because this is the transaction which has read the data item data item C most recently. So these conditions will be failed. That means transaction T1 is not rolled back. So it is allowed under both basic timestamp and Thomas Wright rule. So option A is wrong. Now let us check with option B. That means P value is write A and Q value is also write A. Now let us check here. See, whenever this write operation on A is called by the transaction T2, it will check for these conditions, and here timestamp of T2, that is transaction T2, is right timestamp of timestamp of transaction T2 is greater than the right timestamp of A. Right timestamp of A. Why? Because here the transaction which has performed write operation on data item A is has arrived earlier than these two transactions. Here it is not. Here T1 is not. T1 didn't perform any write operation on A. That means the last transaction which has performed write operation on A would have arrived earlier than both T1 and T2. So there is no problem with this write operation. Now let us come here. Here write timestamp timestamp of transaction T1 is compared with write timestamp of A. That means here timestamp of T1 is less than timestamp of write timestamp of WA. Why? Because here write timestamp of data item A would be timestamp of T2. Why? Because this is the transaction T2 is the most recent one which has performed write operation on data item A. So this will fall under this condition here. So if this is the condition, as we have discussed earlier, it will transaction T which has called write operation on that particular data item will be rolled back in case of basic timestamp ordering protocol, but it will be allowed under Thomas write rule. This write operation will be just ignored, but transaction is not rolled back in case of Thomas write rule. So here correct option is option B. This is the correct option.